Welcome to Clientology, the art and science of client getting. In this podcast, we're going to discuss how you can attract, convert, and deliver. So, attract is how do you attract your dream clients while simultaneously repelling nightmare clients? And convert, we're converting those perfect prospects into dream clients. And lastly, under deliver, we're going to focus on topics around how do we deliver wow experiences. The theme throughout is how do we become more referable? How do we build referral programs and deliberately have systems that work to bring us a steady stream of perfect prospects and dream clients? Welcome to the show. Our guests are all experts in their field and they've agreed to share their insights with my audience. I hope you enjoy and I look forward to your comments and feedback. Hi, everyone. In this episode of Clientology, I am really super excited to have Bob Burg as a speaker. For over 30 years, Bob has been successfully showing entrepreneurs, leaders, and sales professionals how to communicate their value and accelerate their referral business. Although for years he was best known for his sales classic, Endless Referrals, it is his business parable, The Go-Giver, co-authored with John David Mann, that has created a worldwide movement. While part of a 4-book series, The Go-Giver itself has sold more than 1 million copies and has been translated into 30 languages. It was rated number 10 on Inc. magazine's list of the most motivational books ever written and was on HubSpot's 20 most highly rated sales books of all time. Bob is an advocate, supporter, and defender of the free enterprise system, believing that the amount of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. Bob is also an unapologetic animal fanatic and served on the board of directors of Furry Friends Adoption and Clinic in his town of Jupiter, Florida. All right, well, let's jump in. Everyone, today I'm really excited. One of my heroes and legends of publishing is Bob Burg, and you've all heard me raving about Endless Referrals. But the most recent book, which we're going to talk about today, is The Go-Giver. Welcome, Bob.
Hey, Jeff, great to be with you.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your schedule. Now, we're going to talk about The Go-Giver today, and we'll have, for our book club, we're going to have Endless Referrals as a book we cover as well. One of the things I wanted to just jump at first is you talk about the entrepreneurial spirit, but what about those people who aren't entrepreneurs? Does the message in The Go-Giver still apply to them?
Yeah, basically the same principles always apply across the board, Jeff. And when we talk about entrepreneurship, we're talking about that within the vernacular of that person who has gone off on their own, if you will, to build a business. They've invested money, time, sweat equity. Maybe they've taken in other, investments and so forth, and maybe not. It really doesn't matter. It's really someone who owns their own business, right? And they need to be entrepreneurial in terms of always looking for ways to provide immense value to others, because if they don't, they're not going to have a business. I often say when I speak at sales and entrepreneurial conferences that nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. Right? They're not going to buy from you because you need the money, and they're not even going to buy from you because you're a really nice person. They're going to buy from you because they believe that they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. Well, so that's an entrepreneur. What about that person who works within another company? I would say the same principles apply in that maybe instead of entrepreneurial, they need to be intrapreneurial, an entrepreneur within another person's organization, because nobody's going to hire you and continue to pay you a salary because you have a mortgage payment, right? Or because you need the money or want to send your kid to a certain school, or, or even just because you're a really nice person. They're going to hire you. They're going to pay you. They're going to continue to pay you because they believe that you are bringing a sufficient value to the organization that warrants they're paying you. So your job, as opposed to the entrepreneur who needs to absolutely provide value to the end user, maybe the person you have to provide value to is your supervisor, your colleagues, the people in the next department, or maybe those you lead, and ultimately to the customer or client. but really it's just a matter of, when you're an intrapreneur, it's a matter of understanding who you need to provide value to and doing what it takes to do that.
I love that. And by the way, some people might be thinking, "Oh, that doesn't happen." I've had salespeople call me and say, "Jeff, I've got a quota. You got to buy something." It's like,
Mhm.
wait a minute, how's that my
I've
problem?
had that happen as well.
Now, you use a word, it's one of my favorite words, but I think it's one of the most misused and abused. You use the word value. How do you define value? Because I think that's probably an important definition for my listeners in particular.
Yeah, and I agree with you in that it is an overused word, and it's a word that is often not defined, and so well, it's rarely defined, and so people interpret it based on their own personal belief systems, and they interpret it or define it unconsciously, right? So let's define value first. Um, let's put it within the context of price, because people often think that price and value are the same thing, when really it couldn't be more different.
Right.
Price is a dollar figure. It's a dollar amount. It's finite. It simply is what it is, right? Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that brings so much worth or value to another human being that they will willingly exchange their money for it and be glad they did, while you make a very, very healthy profit. And it would be, I know many of your listeners and viewers are writers, and let's say you have a book, and this book sells for $10, and let's say your royalty from it is a dollar. Again, we're just going to name round figures,
Yeah.
but it sells for $10. Okay, so the price of the book to the consumer is $10, but if they derive thousands of dollars of value from this book, then you've given them significantly more in value than what you took in payment. Meanwhile, you made a $1 profit from this book. Now, is that a good profit? Depends. Or, we wouldn't think of it as, but let's see what happens when we go to the next law, right? Which is the law of compensation, which says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So where law number one says to give more in value than you take in payment, which you certainly did, right? In this case, law number two tells us that your income is determined by the number of lives you impact. So if you sell 1,000,000 books and make a $1 profit, not only have you added much value to the lives of 1,000,000 people and increased life and improve their lives, improve the world, but you've now made $1,000,000 because you were able to reach out and touch the lives of so many people with the exceptional value you provided.
I love it. And while we're at it, you mentioned the first two laws. Let's go through the rest of the five laws, and then we'll talk about the book as a whole. And I'm really excited because I have some questions that I love asking the authors, because it's nice to hear the voice in their head as they're writing. So, what was law number three?
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's do that. And by the way, I know a lot of your authors, they write the book with the idea of, really the back end profit. So for many of them, yeah, you might make $1 on the book, but then if you're able to from there attain coaching clients, speeches, sell online product, what have you, you're going to again sell those for a much higher price, and you're going to provide a lot more value to people, and you're going to make a whole lot more profit. So I don't want to limit the value to just that $1. There's
Right.
many ways to provide value to the marketplace and earn a lot more, and then again be able to leverage that through the number of lives you're touching. So the third law is the law of influence, and this says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first, which sounds kind of counterintuitive, right? Kind of productive, maybe downright Pollyanna-ish, right? And yet you think about it, the greatest leaders, top influencers, most highly sustainably profitable salespeople, this is simply how they run their lives and conduct their businesses. They're always looking out for the interests of the other person. Now, let me also qualify this, if I may. When we say place the other person's interests first, we certainly don't mean that you should be anyone's doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial in any way. Absolutely not at all. It's just as Joe, the protege in the story, learned from several of the mentors, the golden rule of business, of sales, what have you, is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you in others than by genuinely moving from that, what we call I focus or me focus, to an other focus, looking for ways to, as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, advised Joe, to make your win all about the other person's win.
I love that. And I think that's a lot of people are coming into things thinking, how can I win? Just shifting that, as you said, the other focus makes a huge impact.
Sure.
Um, okay, so that was law number 3. What's the
Uh-huh.
next in the series?
Yeah. So law number 4 is the law of authenticity. Um, this is another word that's so overused. And so I want to get a little bit into what that really means and doesn't mean. So law number 4, the law of authenticity, says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. Well, in the story, one of the mentors, Deborah Davenport, she shared a lesson she learned in her sales career, and that is that all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and they are very important, all of them, they're also all for naught, Jeff, if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. But when you do, when you show up as yourself day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. They feel comfortable with you. They feel safe with you. Why wouldn't they? They know who they're getting, right? There's that consistency which earns trust. And without that consistency, trust is very hard to come by. And so, so being authentic is not only a nice way to live life, it's a great way to conduct business, because it really engenders and accelerates that trust people have in you. And when sometimes people don't show up authentically, we think, well, it's because they're being phony or they have nefarious. Well, it's a big world. There's certainly people out there who that is the case, but 99.9% of the time, when someone doesn't show up authentically, it's really that they don't have the self-confidence to do so. They haven't really recognized and embraced the value they bring to the table. I believe as human beings, we have 2 types of value. We have intrinsic value, which just means by the very nature of being, we bring value. Okay, we have value. But number 2, the second type of value is what I call market value. And I define market value as that combination of strengths, traits, talents, and characteristics that allows a person to add value to the marketplace in such a way that they will be financially rewarded for it. Now, we all have these elements of these aspects of value, these assets of value, Mike Littman once put it. And they could be different things. But what happens is, and by the way, it might be that we don't have one great asset of value, but we have a number of assets of value that we can combine. Scott Adams, the creator of the Dilbert comic strip, in his book, I'm trying to think of the name of the book, and I'm not remembering it. No, I don't see it, but it was basically how to fail. It was, the subtitle was how to fail at practically everything and still win. And I just so apologize that I'm not thinking of the name. It was a great book, but he talked about what he calls the talent stack. And that is not being, most of us aren't Michael Jordan. Okay. So we're not going to have this, or Steve Jobs, so we're not going to have this one unbelievable talent that with
Yeah.
nothing else we can take, right? But instead, we may be fairly good at a few things. But when we combine these few things, it allows us to bring, so it might be the excellence in terms of our product knowledge, our ability to communicate it. It might be the sense of empathy that we have. It might be our attention to detail. It might be our skill with people. It might be, a whole bunch of different things. But we take a few of these together and we're able to add a tremendous value to people's lives. So it's the tough thing about embracing these assets of value is that as human beings, we're so emotionally close to ourselves, right? It
Yes.
can be difficult for us to see it. And so we don't know when this thing that we're really just great at and we worked hard at mastering, and we're just so well, we see the world from our own viewpoint. So, if we can do it, everyone can do it, right? So what, but which isn't true, by the way, but that's what we think. This then causes us to devalue ourselves. And it's why we don't charge as high a price as we should, why we will come down on price too easily or compete on price instead of competing on high value, right? And so these are very
Yes.
important. We need to really understand our true authentic core. Now, where I think a lot of people sort of um, see authenticity in a counterproductive way is seeing it as, well, authentic means I have no boundaries. I'm just me and take it or leave it. And I am who I am. And that's it. Now, by the way, that's a good philosophy if you don't want to have any good relationships and you don't want to be particularly successful in business. Okay.
To know.
But it's not if you want to succeed. And here's what I mean. It's sort of like the person who says, well, I have anger issues and I yell at people a lot. And if I were to act any differently, that wouldn't be authentic of me. That's baloney. That's malarkey. It's hogwash. It simply means that this person has an authentic problem that they need to authentically work on in order to become a better, higher, more effective, authentic version of themselves.
I
So
love that.
we never want to use authenticity as an excuse to stay where we are, but instead use it as impetus to grow into our true authentic nature. I think we can define authenticity very easily. It's simply acting congruently with your values.
I love that. And thank you for clarifying because again, authentic is a word a lot of people throw out and you think you know what you mean, but you just want to be clear.
Right.
Now, we talked about the first four of the five laws of stratospheric success.
Mhm.
When I read the book, Law 5 was literally a punch right in the throat for me. It was, oh, so please tell this one because it's had a huge impact on me once I figured it out. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And it's something that kind of hit a lot of people in such a way, and we know that only because of the feedback that we receive from so many people. And that's and we'll find out there's a good reason for the trouble so many people have with that. And law number 5 is the law of receptivity, which says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. Now, this really, Jeff, means nothing more than understanding that, yeah, you breathe out and you also have to breathe in. It's not one or the other. We breathe out carbon dioxide, we breathe in oxygen. We breathe out, which is giving, we breathe in, which is receiving. Giving and receiving, despite the horrible negative messages of lack that we receive from the world around us in terms of money, prosperity, abundance, business, right? Where so often people with money or successful businesses are vilified, right?
Yeah.
And so, by the way, there's people who, in the world do lousy things and make a lot of money from it. Sometimes it's even sustainable, though a lot of times it's not, and they end up, being worse off than we did before. But again, it's a big
Yeah.
world, things happen. Um, but those are the things you hear about all the time, right? And that's what the media tells us, and that's what we learn from, whether it's a combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, popular culture, the internet, we hear these horrible messages in this regard. When, if you're living in a market-based society, which our two countries do, the only way that you can earn a lot of money is by providing a lot of value to a lot of people, because remember, no one's forced to do business with you.
Yeah.
Right. So unless government teams up with the industries and they create these special rules, regulations, which I know that's called cronyism. That's not free market capitalism. That's cronyism. And that takes place in both our countries.
Yep.
And it's not fair, it's not right, but it's also not free market capitalism. Free market capitalism, where people are given the choice of who they want to buy from and who they want to sell to, and people come together voluntarily, and it creates a better life and economy for all. But so in that kind of environment, you have to place the other person's interest first. Yeah, money is simply an echo of value. As John David Mann, my excellent co-author, says, as um, money is an echo of value. It's the thunder to values lightning.
Oh,
Right?
I like
So
that.
well, that's John's wordsmith. He's such a great writer. And so the focus needs to be on the value. So we say, giving and receiving are not opposite concepts. They're simply two sides of the very same coin. Right? It's not an either or. You're not a giver or a receiver. You're a giver and a receiver. But what is that the giving must come first. That's a universal law. That's the law of nature. We plant before we harvest. We sow before we reap. Right? We give before we receive. And when we do this and we focus on the giving and we focus on touching people's lives and we focus on creating relationships and we're real, we are authentic, and we stay open to receiving, now we've created that what we call benevolent context for success.
I love it. And I don't give John David Mann enough credit, because I've been a fan of yours for decade, and I've just met him through the Go Giver. But there's definitely a dynamic between the two of you that really resonates with me. I just remember reading the book and reading about the connector, and I was like, oh, there needs to be an entire book about that connector person, because that's who I want to be. But I want to ask you a couple of questions about mentorship, because one of the things I talk to a lot of people, they're just getting started, and they're worried about, how do I find a mentor? Because society has taught us, the lone wolf. We've got all these Hollywood hero stories of the one person who wins the war. What's some of your favorite ways or best ways to find a mentor? And more importantly, what's something we shouldn't do when we're looking for a mentor?
Well, I think you're right. It's very important to find a mentor or mentors throughout our lives, because when we do this, we can really cut our learning curve time by years. These are people who've been there, done that, whether we're talking about specifics in terms of your business or just general life and success principles. So it's a wonderful thing to find a mentor. I think one of the things you want to keep away from, though, is approaching. And by the way, you can pretty much at this point, you can approach anyone. But I think if you approach anyone and just say, hey, will you be my mentor? That's going to sort of be a turnoff to them, because first, there's no relationship there. And a mentor protege relationship is just that. It's a relationship, and it takes time to develop. And so when you just say, to someone who you don't know very well or doesn't know you, hey, would you be my mentor? Well, first, remember, a lot of people ask them to be their mentor. So their time is kind of limited. And asking in that way doesn't distinguish you from anyone else who does the same thing. It also might come across as entitled, like, hey, will you share 30 years of your life with me? Even though you don't know me from a hole in the wall.
Yeah, just pour it into my brain and let's go.
Let's go. Let's get on with it now. You owe me. But nonetheless, that aside, you can approach pretty much anyone Okay. But you do it in a way that's a little more humble and again creates that benevolent context. So you might say to this person, I know you are extremely busy. So if this is something you either don't have the time to do, or for whatever reason you just would rather not, I'll absolutely understand. I wonder if I might ask you one or two very specific questions. Well, what are you doing when you frame it that way? First, you're not coming across as entitled. You're letting them know this is a big ask, that I respect your time, that I realize you're very busy. Okay. You're also giving them an out or back door. You're right away saying, if you're too busy or for whatever reason would just rather not, I'll totally understand. I'll absolutely understand. The out or back door is so very important because people want to feel autonomous and they want to feel in control and they don't want to feel pressured. So, to the degree you give someone the out or back door to take, that's the degree they won't necessarily feel the need to take it. Now, if they do need to, they will, but they would anyway. But this way, the door's open for future. But that's probably not going to happen. When you ask that way, it's very, but here's the third thing you did, which is very important. You didn't just ask to take up their time or pick their brain or to, whatever. You said, may I ask you one or two very specific questions? What does this tell them? One, that you're not going to take up a whole lot of their time with needless chatter. Okay. Two, that you know what it is that you need to ask, that you have an agenda. And when I say agenda in this context, I mean that in a positive way, not, oh, they have an agenda. No, he knows, what you, right? So they're
Yep.
much more likely, they're much more likely, Jeff, to say, oh, sure, absolutely go ahead, because there's no real risk to them. Okay.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, this is coming back to the value where we started. One of the big things I hear a lot from mentors is, the value they perceive in a mentor relationship. But what are some things a protege could do specifically to provide value to their mentor? They're probably not in a position where they can pay them or monetarily reward them, but what are some of the ways as a mentor they can honor their mentor and provide value?
Yeah, so there are actually many things the protege can do, and as you said so wonderfully, it's not about money in that case because you're not in a position to and the mentor knows that, and their main benefit is that they're getting to share their knowledge with someone, and they feel good about that. Nonetheless, it is up to the protege to communicate value in whatever way they can. So the first part of it is just the respect that you're giving them. You're not arguing with them. You're not, you're listening to what they say, that you're applying the information, that you're following up and following through with them to let them know how things are going. It's writing a handwritten thank you note after the meeting, not a text, not an email, a handwritten thank you note. It might be even after that first conversation, making a small donation to their favorite charity in their name. And, let's say they're a animal their favorite charity is the local animal sanctuary. Okay. So which, by the way, you can find out all these things by just doing a search online. And if it's not there, which it probably is, but if not, you'll contact their administrative assistant and just ask what is his or her favorite charitable cause, whatever. And it doesn't have to be big, but a small donation in their name. It'll get back to them. And you're not doing it to kiss up to them. You're doing it again just to simply show respect and communicate value. That I know this is important to you, and I want to let you know that I care about what's important to you. I appreciate you caring about me. You're not saying that, but that's what it's communicating. Okay. Now, you might also know this person collects books on ancient Roman war strategies. Okay. So find that book, get it. And it also might be that this person who's a little bit older, probably, most likely they are not as up on technology as you are. So you may see some areas where you can just help them and redo some of their, website, or redo some, what I'm saying? There's just so many ways that we can bring value to our mentor as a good protege. We just have to kind of think about it and keep asking ourselves and looking for it.
I love it. And value is in the eye of the beholder.
Exactly. Remember, it's the relative worth.
Yeah.
or desirability. Yes, always in the eye of the beholder.
I'm going to share a random story with you, but I once had a mentor. My value I gave to him was he had a VCR in his office, and every time I'd walk in, the light was blinking, and I'm like, he didn't know how to set the clock, and so that was my value to him. He'd just say, Jeff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we had a deal. Every time I asked him a question, I got a question for every time I set his clock. So it is
That's
about
great.
value. Now, I want to ask one or two last questions, and I want to be respectful of your time. I hear there's probably some misconceptions about what it means to be a go-giver. The name kind of implies that you're giving constantly. Aren't you afraid that you're going to be taken advantage of if you're always giving?
Well, so there are definite misconceptions. I think before someone reads the book, and sometimes, strangely enough, even after they read it, because people read into messages what they want to read into them. That yeah, there are some misconceptions. And let me get to the one you answered that you asked in just a moment. One of the main misconceptions is that a go-giver, doesn't care about money or making a profit. Well, that's ridiculous. You wouldn't be in business long if you didn't care about it. No, being a go-giver simply means your focus is on bringing immense value to others. Understanding not only is that a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's the most profitable way as well. Because remember, they're not doing business with you for your reasons, but for their reasons. Also, that go-giver, the misconception, go-givers sell things at a lower price. No, go-givers tend to be on the upper scale of pricing, because remember, a go-giver is selling on high value,
Yeah.
not low price.
I love it. Now I could talk to you for hours but I promised Leslie I wouldn't. So I want to thank you very much for your time, Bob. I'm going to ask you one question because this is for a book club. I see you have a wall of books behind you. I'm going to put you on the spot. What's one book aside from The Go-Giver, because I'm assuming The Go-Giver changed your life, just codifying it. What's one book that's had a huge impact on you, your career, your mindset, your trajectory, whether business or pleasure?
Well, I mean, there's so many. I'd have to say that books such as Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People was a big one.
That's an old version. I love it.
Yeah, this came out. This was a year after this came. This is a 1937 edition. It was published in 1936. The book. This is a 37, and it's really
Wow.
cool looking at the notes, like a newspaper article from back then,
Oh,
and some of
wow.
the notes the person wrote inside. I don't see him right here, but it's really cool seeing someone who wrote this in 1937.
Wow.
Yeah, and then books. And this one was written back in 1906, I believe, by Orison Swett Marden. He was the founder of Success Magazine. It's called Peace, Power, and Plenty.
Oh, I
One of
love it.
the best, just most delicious books I've ever read in my life. Every page is just filled with life enhancing wisdom. But there are so many books, Jeff. It's hard for me to say what are my favorites because it depends on the genre. It depends on,
Yeah.
on so much. But those are two of my all-time favorites, certainly.
I love it. And it's very clear to see that both of those books are very well loved by you. And they've been, I think that's, a lot of people, and I used to be this person. You consume books, you go through them. And now I make a point. I have my 10 Bible books that I go back to over and over again. And for the record, Endless Referrals is one of them. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you for your time. I'll let you back to your day, but I really appreciate it. Any parting comments for our listeners?
Well, no, I mean, I wish everybody the very best of success, and work on your book, get it done, get it written, get it out there, or market it, and just help bring immense value to the lives of all your readers. And that's really the best thing you can do.
Awesome. Well, one of the things I've seen you talking a lot about online is gratitude. So I just want to thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart. It's
Uh,
always fun to meet my heroes and authors. So thank you. And it was a real
Thank
pleasure.
you. Pleasure is mine. Thank you so much, Jeff. It's been great.
Thank you, Bob. Have a great day. Enjoy the hopefully warmer weather down in Florida.
Thank you. Stay warm.
You too. Bye for now.